Let's have a talk. If you don't like your stepchildren, or maybe you like them but you don't love them, there is nothing wrong with you. This is normal, and it is hard, not only to experience it, but also often people will respond to us as if we should love them or at least like them, right? Let's talk about that, and let's talk about some ways that you can make it easier on yourself and stop beating up on yourself. So, number one, it's perfectly normal. A step family is totally different, as I know you know by now, from a traditional family. So, your expectations of yourself need to be different. If you didn't raise a child from a very tiny little child, then the bonding is different. Their trust of you is different. They're experiencing you as an other, as an outsider is different. And it works both ways. It's very, very, very normal for a stepmom to experience the stepchildren as other, as outsider. There just isn't that psychological buffer. There isn't the biochemical buffer even necessarily that says, hey, the kids can be really rude and I'm still going to like them or love them. It's just not necessarily there. It's rarely there for a stepmom. And that's okay. It's really what I want to put across to you is you don't have to beat yourself up about that. This is not something to fix. This is not something to fix. I mean, if there's a mantra about not liking stepchildren or not loving them enough, that's the mantra. This is not something to fix. But there are things you can do to make it easier on yourself. You can fix how hard it is for you. The first is just to acknowledge it, right? We all have to acknowledge when something's out of our control. And that mindset that we can get into when we acknowledge that something's not in our control is very, very different than feeling like we're broken or something's broken because it's hard. If it's out of our control, what can we control? So there is a very real toll that it takes to live with people we do not like. And it is okay to not like your stepchildren. And it is okay to be stressed out because you are sharing space and life decisions with people you don't like. I'm just going to say it. And no judgment here, no judgment coming your way at all. This is normal. When you live with people you don't naturally connect with, there is this constant emotional labor, and it's fatiguing. It's mentally exhausting. It just is. Your home may start to feel no longer like a safe place. The step family home is just riddled with weird dynamics anyway. And you can get your groove on, you can get your game plan. You can that I talk about a lot, in the videos and in the free assessment you can download below, in the ebook and in the coaching. Game planning is what it's all about for stress reduction. Still though, if we're living with people we don't like, it does take a toll. And when you're anticipating those people coming into your home, whether it's the stepkids or the bio mom, anybody who you don't like, there's anticipatory stress. So even before it's happening, there's stress. And I'm not saying all this to discourage you. I definitely don't want to discourage you. I'm acknowledging, validating, this is real and it is a legitimate concern. And we're going to get a strategy. I'm going to tell you all about the strategy. When we're living with people we don't like, and when we don't have control over whether or not they're there, we start to feel like an outsider, not only in the home, but in our own lives. We can sort of reduce how spontaneous we are in our lives, and at home, we may be less authentic, less ourselves. And being authentic and being spontaneous at home can help us grow and discover who we're becoming and try new things. And that extends out into our lives outside of the house. If you're living with stepchildren you don't like, or that you love less than you think you should, there could be this tension because you're not able to express yourself in a real way. And that can manifest in physical symptoms, headaches, insomnia, and other symptoms. For myself, I had a lot of abdominal issues in the first step family. Can you distance yourself? Can you step away a bit? Give yourself and them some space. I'm betting that you have more control over that than you even realize. As a woman, it is really easy in our culture to get programmed to bend over backwards for everybody else and not ourselves. So being a stepmom, boy, does it throw that in our face. If we are not self-care oriented, the effects of that are very, very potent when we become a stepmom because there aren't those buffers. We're not getting that nourishment from our relationships at home to make up for all the extra effort we're putting into it. So if you're not getting rewarded by being around the stepkids for all the effort you're putting in, stepping back and doing less may be important for your mental health. Okay, this video is all about naming the things that are often taboo to talk about. If you're in the Facebook groups, if you're on the online stepmom forums, you may have already experienced or witnessed this, that when a stepmom speaks up about not liking their stepchildren, a lot of stepmoms will say, "Ooh, finally somebody said it. Yay, I'm not alone in this." And there's nothing to be ashamed of. And then there are those people who will respond with judgment and harsh words. And that, I will tell you right now, is completely unacceptable. You do not deserve it at all. When we realize that it is not likely that we're going to fall in love with somebody else's children, then judging other people for it and ourselves gets a lot harder. We could wish it was so. Somebody who's judging us could wish that we loved our stepchildren or that we even liked them, but their wish isn't going to make it so. And so what you deserve is their support. The judgment often comes from people who have not experienced stepfamily dynamics, blended family dynamics, or if they have and they're a stepmom, they're very hard on themselves. Understanding that other stepmoms may be projecting their own insecurities onto you can be very helpful if you encounter this. It's not about you, it's about where they're coming from, okay? That is such a pivotal understanding. If somebody calls me a tree, I know I'm not a tree. I don't have to take what they're saying seriously. It's about them. There's something wrong with their eyesight or something. It's harder to be that detached from their judgment, their comments, their perspective, when it's something so personal, like, them thinking I'm bad for not loving my stepchildren like my own, if that was the case. But they are projecting from their own viewpoint. It is not actually true. It doesn't have to be true. So being selective about who you confide in regarding your true feelings, you have total control over that friend. You have total control over who you confide in as a stepmom. And it can be really tempting to confide in your best friend, but maybe they don't get it. It could be really tempting to confide in a counselor, but they may not get it. So make sure they're trained in stepfamily dynamics. It can be really tempting to confide in your partner, but they may not get it. So it's really important to get support from people who get it. And what do you do if they're not getting it and you need them to? We're upset, we're crying, or we just need to vent, right? So developing confidence in the fact that your feelings are normal and that you have a right to express them in a safe way for everybody is really a first step. Develop that confidence. And when somebody says that you should love them like your own, I wrote out some scripts for you. Here are some things that you can say. I understand that's your perspective, but I'm sharing something difficult and personal. I need your support, not judgment right now. I understand that's your perspective, but I'm sharing something difficult and personal. I need support, not judgment right now. How did that sound to you just now? If somebody said that to you, would it help you be a better support to them? So let's say someone responds with, I could never feel that way about a child. And then you could say something like, everyone's emotional responses are different. I'm trying to navigate these feelings honestly rather than pretending. Everyone's emotional responses are different. I'm trying to navigate these feelings honestly rather than pretending. And I would say you could add to that, for my own mental health. When someone says, those poor kids, they can probably tell that you don't like them. Okay, I would say, I'm working with a therapist to ensure that I'm treating them with kindness and respect while I process all of this. What would help most is your understanding. Another twist on that could be, I appreciate that you really care about kids. I do too. This is just a very different kind of situation, and I'm working with a therapist to ensure that I am treating them with kindness and respect while I process all of this. What would help most is your understanding. How is all of this landing for you right now? Does this seem like a reasonable approach for you to say out loud that you need support and not judgment? And I would also offer that you could say this to yourself in a neutral kind way to yourself. If someone is giving you the classic advice, just give it time, this is more complex about just needing time. I'm sharing this because I need a safe space where I can share my struggles right now, today. And then if somebody ever implies that you're a bad person, now this might come from somebody in your own family or somebody in your stepfamily or somebody else, it's really helpful to say out loud. If you feel like that's what they're getting at, you know what, having these feelings doesn't make me a bad person. It makes me human. The final thing I'll say on this is that if you hear someone kind of boasting, another stepmom, about how much she loves her stepchildren, and it's easy to assume that her stepchildren just totally love her back without any complications and just instant love. Well, first of all, she might be in the honeymoon stage where that could be, but it's not really founded on a lot of trust yet. Or she could actually be experiencing this further down the road, or she could be saying it and it's not 100% accurate, right? If it hurts when she says that, if you feel at all like that's making you wrong for not loving your stepchildren, then you could say something like, I'm glad that is your experience, but suggesting that all stepmoms should feel the same, it really invalidates how I'm feeling, which is very real for me and for a lot of stepmoms. These are brave things to say, right? And, self-care is kind of brave because we can feel like we're risking rejection. And here's what I have to say about that. And this is where it's helped to live a long enough life and, frankly, to have gone through menopause. It can get easier when the hormones shift. That if other people reject me because I am taking care of myself without making them wrong, important. If they reject me when I'm taking care of myself and I haven't made them wrong and they still reject me, bye. Goodbye. Goodbye. Life is too precious. Like they can move on and go somewhere else and be somebody else's friend or acquaintance. It's not going to work for me. So I will pass that along as permission to be selective about who you associate with. All right, so another way to cope with not liking your stepchildren, maybe the H word, hating them, or just not loving them like your own. then you can also, to deal with the stress that may be bringing about for you, you can focus on another way to be in relationship. So for that, I would say set more reasonable goals for yourself. It's really interesting when parents have children in a conscious way, when they know they're pregnant or they're going to adopt or they're going to foster, and they've got some time leading up to it. Maybe they take some parenting classes, some foster parent classes, some adoption classes. They get a chance to get in the mindset for it and set some goals, some aspirations ahead of time. I want to be this kind of parent, right? And I want to have this effect in this child's life. But as step parents, very rarely does a stepmom prepare ahead of time or have any guidance for that. So now is the time to play some catch up and set some more reasonable goals for yourself about the kind of relationship you're going to have with your stepkids. Now you have an advantage here. You already know, I don't like them. I don't love them like my own. All right, let's work with that. Given that reality, you've done some scouting, you've figured that out. Now you got to build from there. Not to change it necessarily, but what's realistic given that fact. Set some reasonable goals. Aim for peaceful coexistence. What would that look like? Aim for respect and kindness. Aim for setting some boundaries that work for everybody. And I would say, celebrate the small wins. There are going to be small wins. There are going to be times when you're like, oh, wow, I actually had a really nice connection. It wasn't stressful. They didn't annoy me, whatever it is. And get in the habit. Oh, yes, definitely get in the habit of celebrating those small wins. And that will help to create some neural pathways in your brain that will help you notice even other small wins. And then you notice those and you build more neural pathways for noticing small wins. And I tell you, the perception of what your stepmom life is like may shift to a more positive place, because it really is about perception and not perfection in stepfamily life, in any life. Perception, not perfection. So moving forward, what do we do with this? If perfection isn't what you're moving towards, that can be kind of a letdown. There could be some grieving, and there's also some rearranging of, all right, what does this mean? If I'm not going to put all my energy into trying to create or create love, then where am I going to put my energy? And how am I going to let that go and come to a place of enough acceptance where I can put that down and enjoy my life? One caution here would be to look out for how these feelings of not liking, of being frustrated by not loving your stepchildren might be leaking into how you treat them. Because then it can become sort of this self-fulfilling prophecy where, yeah, if somebody treats me like they don't like me, or like they want to have this love relationship and I don't and they don't, and then it's going to create this sort of negative feedback loop between us, which will make me less likable and them less likable. So I would say look for ways that it might be leaking into how your dynamic a little bit, and keep an eye on that. And as you take control in these ways I've mentioned, that could improve. So you can see it's a big topic that I am here for. I am here. If you have concerns about this, I want you to feel totally free to reach out to me at my website, iishana.com, iishana.com. And you can also, of course, enter in the comments below. I think it's really important for stepmoms to see other stepmoms talk about how it's okay to not like your stepchildren or how to not love them like your own. We need to know that there's a safe space for that. We're not going to be judged. You matter. And you matter to yourself. You matter to the divine plan that has you in it and to your stepfamily. I believe that you can make your life much better with some strategy and support. So check out the links below, and I will see you in the next video where we will dive deeper into how to be a healthy, happy stepmom.